A mysterious explosion that flattened tens of millions of trees in 1908, bags full of human body parts, ancient animals thawing out of the permafrost. Just what in the heck is going on in Siberia? Let's find out. In 1908, this massive explosion flattened around 80 million trees in a remote Siberian forest. While the scientific consensus is that the blast was caused by a meteor or comet, some believe that something else happened that day. That it wasn't a space rock, but the crash landing of an alien spacecraft. What's always been strange about this event is that there was a lack of any discernible impact crater, which doesn't exactly align with what we typically see when a large space rock slams into our planet, right? So what the hell could have happened? Did otherworldly travelers have some kind of mechanical failure resulting in a less than graceful touchdown in the Siberian wilderness? You know, anything's possible. It's definitely a much more enticing idea than a meteor. Until this day, we still don't know exactly what happened in the deep forests of Siberia that day. And some dare to entertain the idea that maybe, just maybe, there's more to the story than a run-of-the-mill space rock exploding in Earth's atmosphere. Next up on the list, we have the case of the frozen hands. This is a really icky one. Back in 2018, Russian fishermen came across a really lovely surprise in Siberia along the Amur River. A sack containing 54 frozen human hands. As you can imagine, the fishermen really didn't have much use for a bunch of frozen hands, so they alerted the police, and it was found that the hands belonged to 27 different people. So all kinds of wild theories started spreading online. You can probably imagine what some of those sounded like. Of course, the main theory was that a hand-severing freak was roaming across the icy tundra, chopping off people's hands. It seemed as if these hands had been improperly discarded from a hospital. Back in 2012, a strange cylindrical object was discovered by residents of a small rural village called Ostradensky in Siberia. The object weighed hundreds of pounds and was unlike anything anyone had seen before. Village residents hooked it up to a trailer, hauled it back to town, where they alerted the authorities, who came and picked it up to be studied. The villagers, as well as folks on the internet, began speculating as to what this mysterious object was and where it came from. Of course, space was being thrown around in almost every conversation. Was this part of some secretive space-faring government technology? Was it alien in origin? Well, an official at the Russian Space Agency soon made a statement that the object had no relation to space technology of any kind. But if it wasn't part of a spacecraft of some kind, then what was this thing? How did it end up there? Nobody really knows. Lake Baikal in southern Siberia is the world's largest freshwater lake by volume. It's incredibly deep, and there are some pretty eerie stories about it. First of all, there's all the mysterious lights that are reported, not just hovering or flying above it, but also coming from the depths of the water. And there's a very creepy story that was supposedly an attempted cover-up by the Russian government. So the story goes that back in 1982, a team of Navy divers were doing routine diving exercises in the lake when a number of them spotted disturbing figures, a very strange sense. They were tall and slender, well over 6 feet tall, and wearing what looked to be silver suits. They also had large, circular, glowing, unblinking eyes. The creatures began pursuing the divers, who panicked and swam back up to the surface. They reported what they'd seen to their superiors, but that's where the story ends. The existence of the strange creatures has never been confirmed, nor has it been denied. In recent years, researchers have started observing these huge craters popping up across the Siberian tundra. The first sightings of these massive holes were reported by pilots flying over the Yamel Peninsula in 2014. Then, more and more of them started forming, seemingly out of nowhere. They were like natural sinkholes. The holes are about 65 feet across when they first form, then they get bigger, and they kind of just explode into existence. Scientists still aren't 100% sure what's causing this. Some speculate that climate change could be a major factor though, with most craters seeming to form after particularly warm summers. They seem to form because of a buildup of methane, but it isn't entirely clear why this methane is building up. The Valley of Death earned its ominous nickname as an animal graveyard. Tons of reports have documented the unexplained deaths of various animals in the desolate region of Siberia. Birds, foxes, bears, most of which were seemingly healthy before they died. But there is a clear explanation for this. All the volcanoes, they emit high concentrations of poisonous gases. The noxious gases, including carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, can be very dangerous for anyone or anything that ventures into the valley. The emissions can cause dizziness and confusion and even death in high enough concentrations, thus all the dead animals. The place can also be pretty dangerous simply because of how remote and inhospitable it is. But this isn't the only mysterious valley in this part of the world, nor is it the only one nicknamed Death Valley. Oh boy. There's also the Death Valley of Yakutia. This one has some really mysterious urban legends around it. For one, you have the domes. Locals tell of these mysterious half-submerged objects that appear to be made out of copper-colored metal. Often described as large, dome-shaped objects, they're said to plunge into the ground from above. There are stories of people getting too close to them and then suffering severe illness or even death afterwards. Now, this sounds pretty crazy, but there could be some truth to it. After all, Yakutia used to be a site where rocket launches were tested. The area could be littered with debris from failed launches. People have also claimed to see strange things in the area, like hovering, sometimes exploding balloons, basically UFOs. Given the history of nuclear tests in the area by the USSR, some of these phenomena might have had real, albeit terrifying origins. It's also possible that high levels of methane gas in the area could have contributed to hallucinations. In 2010, a team of Russian scientists found a well-preserved mammoth in Siberia, later named Yuka. She was a young mammoth, about 6 to 8 years old, and lived around 39,000 years ago. Yuka's body was in really good shape. Its body measured about 2.5 meters in length, and it was really well intact, with her trunk, bones, some of her flesh, hair, and eyes still preserved. Finding a dinosaur in this condition would be absolutely unreal, wouldn't it? That'll never happen, but anyway. They think Yuka might have fallen into a mud pit or drowned, which helped preserve her so well. People probably butchered her for meat as well, as there were cut marks on her bones. Scientists studied her DNA to learn about mammoths and their connection to modern elephants, and right now Yuka is currently being held in Moscow. Yuka isn't the only ancient animal to have thawed out of the Siberian permafrost though, not by a long shot. In 2019, scientists found a 1,000-year-old bear carcass preserved in the permafrost. The ancient brown bear carcass was discovered by reindeer herders, and again, it was incredibly well preserved. The carcass dates back approximately 3,500 years, placing it in the late Bronze Age. Imagine you're riding around in a helicopter when all of a sudden you're plummeting towards the earth, except there's nothing wrong with the chopper. Instead, you're being sucked into a gigantic hole in the ground. The Murny mine in eastern Siberia is one of the largest human-made holes in the world. As if you needed me to tell you that, I mean, just look at it. This colossal open-pit kimberlite diamond mine has a depth of over 525 meters, which is about 1,722 feet, and spans a diameter of 1,200 meters, or around 3,900 feet. It's the fourth deepest of its kind in the entire world. This mine is said to be so vast that it reportedly creates powerful downdrafts capable of, again, sucking in helicopters. And for this reason, there is restricted airspace over the area. Now, one of the strangest things ever to happen in Siberia was, of course, the Dyatlov Pass Incident in 1959. 9 Soviet hikers ventured off into the Ural Mountains, never to be seen again. Alive, that is. And the cause of their deaths became quite possibly the biggest hiking mystery in history. We still don't know what happened here, at least not definitively. In 2020, Russian authorities came out saying they likely died in an avalanche, and a lot of people, including me, just aren't really convinced of that. So anyway, this group of hikers led by Igor Dyatlov set out on their expedition on January 27th. Their journey was expected to take around 16 days to complete, but when no message was received after their arrival at their destination, and days went by after they were meant to have returned, their families became concerned and authorities were contacted. A search party was organized, and on February 26th, the hikers' tent was discovered, abandoned, and ripped open, but from the inside. The bodies of the hikers were found scattered in the snow all over the place. Some were partially clothed and with signs of severe injuries. These included skull fractures, chest trauma. 2 of them were missing eyes. 1 of them had their tongue missing. But with how gruesome and mysterious this incident was, wild theories have been talked about ever since. Some theories go that the hikers were victims of a nuclear testing accident, some kind of government experiment or cover-up. Maybe the students came across something they weren't supposed to see. I've even heard like Sasquatch and the Yeti thrown into the mix. And then of course we have the avalanche theory, which again, I don't know, I just don't buy. But with all that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.